Now to Ukraine, where the authorities have ordered the evacuation of families with children from the strategically important city of Pokrovsk and its surrounding villages. Russian forces have been advancing on Pokrovsk, which lies on a key road supplying Ukrainian troops and towns. The head of the local administration believes they have only a week or two to get as many people out as possible. Meanwhile, Ukraine is reported to have shelled and damaged a third bridge over the river Siam in the Russian region of Kursk. The bridge is the last remaining crossing point on the river in the area, and its destruction would cut off many Russian troops from reinforcement and supply. President Zelensky says Ukrainian forces now hold and control considerable territory and that more Russian soldiers have been captured. Mr. Zelensky says that as Ukrainian troops progress, it's becoming clear that President Putin isn't strong enough to withstand a Ukrainian attack on Russian territory. He says the aim of Ukraine's incursion into Russia's Kursk region includes creating a buffer zone, suggesting Kyiv intends to hold and expand the territory it's taken.
Today, we achieved good and much-needed results in destroying Russian equipment near Toretsk. And all this is more than just defense for Ukraine. It is now our primary task in defensive operations overall, to destroy as much Russian war potential as possible and conduct maximum counteroffensive actions. This includes creating a buffer zone on the aggressor's territory, our operation in the Kursk region.
President Zelensky. Well, for his assessment, let's cross live to London and speak with the RISE European Affairs analyst, Dr. Marek Laskiewicz. Good to see you, Dr. Laskiewicz. What's your sense of the way things stand at the moment with this dramatic Ukrainian incursion into Russia?
Well, the dramatic Ukrainian into Russia, we hope it will succeed for them. However, it has, by the same token, taken troops away from the fighting in the south and has given Russia an opportunity to advance, whereas previously it was a stalemate there. And this means that Russia could, in effect, in PR terms, if not in territorial terms as well, neutralize the effect of the Kursk incursion and, in fact, carry on expanding if Ukraine lacks troops, because it would appear to have taken some of its best troops and used them in Kursk, weakening, as I said before, the southern defenses.
If we have time, I'd like to get to that Russian advance inside Ukraine itself. But let's just focus on the Ukrainian incursion for the moment. 3 attacks and destruction of 3 bridges in the Kursk region. How much is that likely to hamper Russia's ability to reinforce its troops and to fight back against Ukraine and push them out of Russia?
It all depends how they're going to set about defeating the Ukrainian troops in the Kursk region. First and foremost, some of them may have to be withdrawn in order to help stabilize the situation south. Secondly, Russia does not have to have a frontal attack going, so to speak, westwards. It can, following what it did in Stalingrad, actually attack from the sides, so to speak, outflank. Thirdly, the destruction of the bridges is not actually as critical as it would appear to the military operations, because actually you can put up temporary bridges, and this has been the case for centuries now, so that destruction of bridges is by no means a fatal result. What is interesting, though, about it is that the implication is that Ukrainians are, exactly as Zelensky saying, not going to go any further, because by the same token as the Russians can't cross the bridge from east to west, by the same token, a bridge destroyed means the Ukrainians can't go from west to east. So the implication is, indeed, he's trying to set up a buffer state. But if this is the case, that therefore the Ukrainian incursion is limited, then in very real terms, it will lose some of its threat to Moscow, which is concentrating, I repeat, on the south.
It's all very interesting, but also, I mean, rather confusing what's happening there, because, I mean, we also understand that Ukraine is now advancing even deeper into Russia, about a kilometer or two each day, and is solidifying its grip in that area. How surprised are you, Dr. Laskiewicz, that up till now the Ukrainians haven't met any kind of serious resistance from the Russian military?
The reason lies again in Russian history. Russia has the luxury of being able to choose where to place its troops, and it has no real necessity to halt the Ukrainian movement by kilometer, because a kilometer in Russian terms is nothing. The fact that they're advancing at all is an embarrassment. It's a humiliation. It is undoubtedly a bad PR for Russia, and they suffer losses. All that is quite true. Unfortunately, none of these points are fatal. None of these points are fundamental, and that the Ukrainian advance, in effect, so to speak, partially into thin air, is masking the fact that some of its best troops are there. As far as we can tell, Russia is in fact sending more conscripts there in the sense of simply slowing down the advance, assuming they're even going to do that in the sense that they can withdraw back still further, and are concentrating on the south. And this is a key point.
Nevertheless, of course, this shock incursion, as you mentioned in the past, has boosted Ukraine's morale and clearly dented Russia's sense of their own strength and safety.
Yes and no. One of the problems is, as I said, assuming Ukraine can hold the Kursk region, it is important in the sense I've said before as an embarrassment, as a boost for Ukrainian morale, and it certainly has dented some Russian morale too. But by the same token, were it to lose the Kursk region, that would be a hammer blow for it, because President Zelensky has made it quite clear he expects the Kursk region and, of course, the prisoners he's captured to be a reason why the Russians will come to the negotiating table. But they've withdrawn from the negotiating table. And therefore, the implication is rather the opposite, that in the long run, what he has done is conquered an irrelevant piece of Russia, because it's very small in Russian terms. It must be remembered, 1,000 square kilometers, were it to be taken out of Ukraine, that would hurt. But out of an enormous country like Russia, 1,000 square kilometers is nothing. And it does mean, and I underline the fact, that he will have to retain good troops there, because he cannot afford to lose the Kursk region, because that would be a real hammer blow to the Ukrainians, because it would show that Russia is not only back, but winning.
Very interesting. And let's just return to what is happening inside Ukraine, because you touched on that briefly. Ukrainian forces, of course, are making gains since they launched that surprise military operation inside Russia nearly 2 weeks ago, but they do remain under pressure in occupied eastern Ukraine, don't they, with Russian forces advancing there from what we're seeing and hearing.
And here is a very serious error that Ukraine made on my side in asking the residents of Pokrovsk to evacuate. The implication is quite clear. The Ukrainians are saying they can't hold on to it. The implication is quite clear. The Russians are winning there, and that is by far the more serious front. It has to be pointed out that this was the Russians' primary goal, as far as it can be worked out what their goal was, apart from conquering the whole of Ukraine, and that any advance on this front means that they are winning what they see as the essential war. Somewhere along the lines, the Kremlin has made a cold-blooded decision to continue winning as far as it can on this southern front, if we put it, and treating the entire Kursk incursion as little more than a bite, so to speak. And if this calculation works out and would appear to do so, then actually the Russia will have nullified any of the advantages that Ukraine may have from the Kursk region. Not only that, if it does succeed in capturing Pokrovsk, the problem will be that it needn't stop there. It seems to be the case that Ukraine has weakened its southern defenses in order to make this incursion. But by the same token, this means the Russian can keep on going in the south. And therefore, Ukraine will sooner or later be forced with the dilemma of either being unable to maintain its Kursk incursion or facing ever more losses in the south. So therefore, the situation is very far from what is being described by many people as a loss for Russia. But if it goes wrong, it may well turn out that Kursk incursion, by weakening the southern defenses, actually was a bad move for Ukraine, because not only did Russia go away from the negotiating table, it would appear to have cost them, and may cost them still more, southern territory.
Thank you, Dr. Laskiewicz, for that assessment. Dr. Marek Laskiewicz is a RISE European Affairs analyst. He was talking to me on the line from London.